Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Great. Would you like me? There we go. Thank you. That was what I was going to say. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming this afternoon. I'm feeling nervous about this, but I always like to reframe nerves as excitement. So I'm sweating and I've got some perspiration going on everywhere. So that's because I really want to be here and I'm really excited to be able to offer this day, this event for you all. This is the last one, unfortunately, of a range of sessions we've run around transitions, around preparing for adulthood. So if you haven't seen the other sessions, just to highlight, there are other sessions on the same website that this one will be on around transitioning from children to adult social services care, money management, training and employment, independent living and housing, and mental capacity and decision making. So this is the last one in a series that Debbie's been organising. So hopefully you'll get a lot from the hour, or just under an hour that we've got. It says it on the screen, but just to be super clear, we've got a question and answer function. So for general questions, if the presentations pose questions for you, or if there are questions that aren't answered, please do put them in the chat. We'll try and answer them as we go. If we can't answer them within this session, we'll answer them afterwards, and all the answers will go on the website for everybody to be able to see. But what we can't do is deal with specifics. So please don't put anything confidential in the chat, in the question and answers, because this will be on the public website. If you've got any specific questions and you need support, there's an email on the first slide there around if you want to catch it down. It will be on the website as well, but DIAS can really help in terms of signposting, and if you aren't getting what you need from DIAS, you can email transitionsadultsocialcare@devon.gov.uk. So we're going to record the session, we're going to share the slides and the recording, and we're going to do a full Q&A. That's our offer to you. I'm Jo Lewitt. I'm in the public health team at Devon County Council, and I'm a mother of two humans who are turning into adults in front of my eyes, both with special educational needs and disabilities. So I'm here with a passion. I know there are others in the room who have a similar passion. And we've got some other people who are passionate about supporting you. So just to be clear, we've got a range of people here. We've got some young people, we've got some professionals that support families, and we've got some parent caregivers as well. So hopefully this will meet all of your needs. But if you feel you need more, there'll be a range of signposting in the last slide around other sources of support. Okay. Want to move me on, Debbie. So welcome to our speakers. We've got 3 presentations in the next hour. The first one's going to be Sarah Lou Glover. She founded Parental Minds, and she'll tell you all about that in a minute. But basically, I've worked closely with her, and she's very, very passionate about what she does. And she sets up support and a network for parent caregivers, as she'll explain, but I've worked with her closely and heard her speak before, and she has been described as inspirational, so I would agree with that. That's why she's here. Sarah Screech works in what you'll learn to know as the MERS service, formerly known as CAMS. And she's worked at that for 18 years, and she's very passionate. I've met her a few times, haven't I, Sarah? And we've worked on various conversations around transitions and children's mental health needs. And she's going to talk to you about the current services in MERS. Leslie's with her, sitting next to Sarah is Leslie Brooks. She's a clinical associate psychologist working on the complex emotional needs service. So you'll learn about that in a little while. But that is where people are between children and adults mental health services who've got more complex needs. I'll let Leslie explain that, but quite clearly she's very passionate about supporting young adults during that process. And I'm looking forward to hearing you both talk. Our last speaker is from Young Devon. Kirsty Kell. She works in the therapeutic team. She's really passionate about supporting young people, and she's going to share with us some of the thoughts, feelings, and insights that young people have given young Devon over the years about what helps them and their families. So we've got a real mix here. Hopefully you'll get something from all the speakers, but feel free to put questions in the chat, as I said. That is all of our speakers. Can you put me onto the next slide, Debbie? I'm not going to give too much away, but Sarah Lee's going to talk about self-care and practical tips and what they've learned working with the families that they work with. Then we're going to talk about the mental health pathways with Sarah and Leslie, and then Kirsty's going to talk to us about young people's perspective. So without further ado, it's 1:10. I'm going to hand over the baton to Sarah Lee Glover from Parental Minds.
Lovely, thanks very much. Hopefully you can see my screen if somebody wants to give a thumbs up. Wonderful. Okay, so thanks, Jo, for that introduction. Really appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. So we're here today to think about supporting a family member when they're moving into adulthood. So I am Sarah Lou Glover, founded Parental Minds some while ago, about 5 years ago. And we're all about inspiring self-care while supporting the well-being of others. We offer a safety net of support, hope, practical guidance, and a listening ear for as long as it's helpful. And all of the guidance that we offer, anything that you see today, comes from families' experiences with insight from professionals and researchers. And a caregiver is aged 18 plus and is supporting the well-being of a child, family member, friend or colleague. And all of our staff have their own personal experience and are trained in peer support as well. So our offer, part of it's across Eastern Devon, which you will see in the in blue, and the top three that you'll see there are our virtual support. So if you're outside of Eastern, we still offer a newsletter on a monthly basis. You can access a private Facebook group as well as information being shared on a daily basis. We have skills workshops, and you can also arrange to speak to one of our peer mentors. If you happen to live in Eastern, then you can also have phone calls as long as you like and as many as you need, WhatsApp support individually or in groups, and face-to-face in various locations. So the first point I'd like to make is that this journey is different for each child of each family. When children struggle with their emotional well-being in maybe education or with their environment, parents often express feelings of guilt for not being able to make things better for them. And I know I did. I had real surges of panic that they were approaching adulthood and that I'd not been able to protect them from life's colliding challenges. What I know now is that parental support, it doesn't stop at 18. There's plenty of time to continue to nurture them, be alongside them, whatever that might look like for your family. And it's also common for parents to see ourselves as the main influence in our children's lives. But actually, research tells us that during the teenage years, the neurons in their brains respond primarily to reactions with their peers, unlike during infancy, when they primarily respond to their main caregiver's voice. So consider all the people that children interact with daily, whether that's siblings, cousins, grandparents, neighbours, past teachers, school friends, nursery staff, so many more. If you were to visualise each of those interactions as a flower or an insect in this garden, you'd very quickly realise the responsibility doesn't lie solely on the parent's shoulders. Our world is also saturated with information that shapes all our feelings, thoughts and behaviours. So if you'd like to take a look at this image and imagine all the people who have influenced your child and you. So consider this, the average person meets approximately 80,000 people in their lifetime. That's 3 a day, or nearly 1,100 people per year. So by the time your child turns 18, they will have interacted and encountered with 20,000 people already. So please keep that picture in mind. When our children are moving into adulthood, our role as a parent changes. it's useful to take some time to consider what changes will happen moving forward. Will you be needed more or less? Will you be needed more for driving to different places where maybe they've been independent for some things? How will juggling work with home life and the way that things have changed, and your work life? Will you miss them being at home to look after pets, for example, or are they going to be at home more? It's different for every family. But what we do know for every single one of us is it's going to bring change. Change for your adolescent, but also change for you. We can support our young people who are anxious by reminding them that some things will remain the same, and supporting them to plan for the exciting things that they're looking forward to. But I'd like you to take a moment to consider how things will change for you as an adult. If they're moving away, take some time to consider what you might do when they're no longer in the house, especially if they're your youngest child. It can feel really quite lonely when they go. So planning some things that you enjoy in advance might be useful. Setting up some events with others who've shared a similar experience is worth considering too. And with change comes a variety of emotions. When parents and caregivers, for some families, there has been some violence expressed towards parents from young people, and this can intensify during times of change. So one of our parents wanted me to share her experience with you around change, how it manifested in her child, reminding us that for some families, this transition to adulthood and adult services can have real additional challenges. And we were asked to touch on this today with you. So for her son, those demands increased due to uncertainty about what did the future hold for them, the fear of change, not being able to communicate effectively their point of view, and the fear of not being heard. And all that resulted in the violence escalating and the challenging behaviour towards her escalating. And families tell us that this isn't unusual, and there's very little support out there in such an isolating time. During these times, she tried to remind herself that all the behaviour she was seeing was coming as a form of communication. She tried to ask herself so many times, what was he trying to communicate? And the most important thing that she said was keeping herself safe, keeping siblings safe, and keeping family members safe. Restraining her child when they were violent only escalated in the behaviour increasing and actually her ending up with a broken nose, which wasn't just upsetting for her, but for him as well, because he didn't mean to do that. She'd spend so much time trying to figure it out. And what happened for her, and in our experience, what we're finding with other families that we support, is often it's linked to overwhelm of demands being placed on our young people, that they don't have the communication to express themselves, and then become totally dysregulated. So parents tell us the best things they can do is keep low demand approaches as much as they can, very little communication, letting them know that we're there if they need us, trying very hard to stay quiet and calm and not seem frightened. Once parents stop placing demands on their young people, then what we're seeing is that violent behaviour tends to reduce. And one parent shared with us, once I stopped placing demands on them, the behaviour reduced. I gave myself permission to speak up, to explain that we would be able to attend appointments or stick to other people's deadlines. We wouldn't always be able to do that. And when their child moved out of home and started to live on their own, actually the behaviour stopped. There was no violent behaviour now that they had control over their environment. So now she asks them if they want her support before placing any demands on them. She says she'd been an advocate for them with all the services and benefits that they can't manage in meetings or fill out the paperwork. And sometimes they choose to come along, but there's no guarantees that they will or that they'll contribute. And she says she wishes that someone had told her when they were 16, that it was okay to you would still have interaction. It was okay to stand back. She also said she wants other parents to know that young people's behaviour can change over time. There's many other parents out there experiencing the same thing, and they're not alone, even though it can feel like there's little support. So the summary of what she wanted to get across was using low demand strategies, declarative language, and remind myself that behaviour came from fear and total overwhelm. And growing up can be very frightening for some of our young people who just aren't ready for it yet. So coming back to think about you as a parent caregiver, it's likely that there's been times where you've needed to be a rhino advocating for your child, or that kangaroo needing to fix things for them, or maybe you can relate to that jellyfish feeling a bit anxious about things, or the tenacious terrier asking lots of questions, or the ostrich not knowing what to say sometimes and being that playful otter. And it's likely as our children go into young adults that we move from fixing to empowering, from reassuring to assuring, and from protecting and trusting, from protecting to trusting them. And we refer to this way of supporting someone as being a dolphin, being alongside our young adult dolphins, and sometimes being that eagle, supporting them to see that bigger picture. So one of the ways we can do that is using something called Face Facts. This is on our website with a video of how to use it as well. And it's face is the process and facts is the principles behind it. So it's all about validating their feelings, perhaps giving a verbal hug if a physical one isn't welcome, and listening to hear rather than listening to respond. It's a great way to be a dolphin parent alongside our young adults. And asking if they wish to problem solve, or because sometimes offloading might be enough. Choosing validating language if they would like your help, and empowering them to problem solve with your support. Asking ourselves sometimes if the questions we're asking are for our own benefit, to satisfy our own curiosity, or if they are for the benefit of our young person. And then when we come to an end, it's being that otter parent again, engaging with activity that they enjoy. And the facts, just a couple of principles I wanted to pull out is acceptance. Remember that we can accept something even if we don't agree with it or understand it. So it's accepting those emotions usually behind it. And as I said, there's more information on that on our website. So with problem solving, we have some really simple ideas of things like taking really small steps. So if they do ask for problem solving, this might involve some mind mapping maybe to explore different options and to support you both to work out where to prioritise your energies. There'll be numerous things to consider, maybe housing, appropriate benefits, whether to pursue education or concentrate your energies into developing their life skills. And once you've decided on some of these actions, then helping them break them down into small bite-sized pieces can be particularly useful. So as you start to pass over responsibility to them, you might work through the steps, such as this example. This is a parent had used this to support their young person in applying for a bus pass. We might kind of say, oh, you need a bus pass, but actually what does that mean? And there's so many things we do automatically, so breaking them down further into manageable specific tasks can really help young people to gain independence and build their confidence. So we aim to make each step achievable, boosting their self-esteem so that they succeed. And if they don't manage one of the steps, we can support them in knowing that that's not failure. It's the first attempt in learning, one of my favourite sayings. It can be particularly hard for parents who have been included in their young person's journey up to the age of 18. And sometimes it can feel like you suddenly fall into a black hole of lack of information. But one thing that we do say to parents who feel this way is sometimes no news is good news. They would be informed if there was a safeguarding issue. And as far as the triangle of care is concerned, actually a child or an individual of any age, if you're still the caregiver, the service doesn't have the right to prohibit a professional from engaging with a carer or from the carer being given information, advice and support, and nor from talking to the carer about the patient, providing that no confidential information is divulged. So I hope that sets your mind at rest a little bit about that. So changes can lead us to feeling stressed, and stress is the gap between reality and expectations. So these might be expectations we place on ourselves or that we have from others. And one may be that we will be needed less by children as they start to become adults. However, as I said, it can be a particularly daunting time for some young people as they feel the world is placing expectations on them. So you may well find for a period of time that they appreciate more time with you than you expected. If our young adults are in supported living, for example, there may be gaps in support for many different reasons, and preparing ourselves for this reality will really start to result in less stress, moving into acceptance that things won't always be as we hope they would be. And perhaps when we're problem solving, using those skills to think about, if supported living isn't available immediately, what could good enough look like, such as separating part of your house out or them living with a relative for a period of time? So really using that kind of mind mapping to really think about things. And being really aware that central government, local authority and health, they all use different systems. So please keep copies of anything regarding universal credit, for example, that you can duplicate for DCC, maybe for a care package, and knowing that health support is also on a separate system. So keeping that information is super important. You can use something called snipping tools, and you can extract words out of that, even from a PDF or an image. So it's useful to discuss the difference between aspiring to achieve something rather than holding ourselves to a standard of perfection, regardless of other factors such as mood, hormones, or hunger. And it's important to remember that we're complex individuals navigating a complex environment. So sometimes we can modify that reality to narrow that stress gap. So by bringing our expectations closer to the reality, the gap reduces and consequently the stress shrinks, and leading to more balanced and manageable experience for everyone. So if you do find yourself feeling anxious or stressed before working out which strategies might be helpful, it's useful to understand how you process your own senses. What do you like? What do you seek? What do you avoid? And you can do this with your young people as well. And you may have heard of hope boxes and sensory boxes. Think about all those different senses and how you can use those in a box, but also, you know, you can use a small bag. It doesn't need to be a big box of things. And it's worth considering an expressing emotions box too, things that help you express getting those feelings out through physical movements. So just before I finish, I want to remind you about your own well-being. We often see well-being as something that we don't have time to engage in. So we might plan to do an activity like a long relaxing bath at the end of our day, but life gets in the way. And this means that our well-being bridge collapses. We end up feeling tired and burnt out. So doing really small things, we call these mini moments, just something that takes 5 to 10 minutes a day. It can be actually taking a full cup of tea or just going outside and taking a deep breath. They really help you to manage your time throughout your day. And if you don't make it to that class at the end of the day, you've still managed your bridge. So taking the time to defrag allows you to clear your mind. Really suggest doing this after work and again after dinner, but way before your bedtime. It's simply letting your thoughts in through the day, questioning any that you start to ruminate over, and writing down what you can do about that thought, who can support you with it, and when you might do it. If there's no action to be taken, then what tools from those emotion boxes might be useful? When are you going to do them, and with whom? So by doing this, we free ourselves from continuously pondering those thoughts, allowing us to be fully present with our family for the rest of the evening or enjoy a peaceful sleep. So some of these tools and support guides are available on the website for young people that you're supporting. There's Thrive directories with links to lots of different pages and different support of families and professionals to help you navigate that system. So I know I've thrown lots of information out there, but I'd love you to put something in the chat about something that you might go away, either something you've taken from this or something that you might try doing throughout your day as a mini moment.
Thank you, Sarah Lou. Thank you. Look at that timing. That was incredible. I'm just going to say I've got the mini moments card on my desk, and there's QR codes that take you to each of them, and I really find them very useful. And my other tip that I'm not going to put in the Q&A, I'm going to say it, is when I was navigating all of the complexity of all those meetings and all those EHCP forms, etc., I've got shoe boxes. So I put each child's paperwork in a shoebox, and if I can't deal with it today or this week or even next week, I just shut the shoebox and put it to the side, and when I've got the capacity, I open the shoebox and I deal with it. But then when I can't, I just put it back to the side, because you cannot think about this stuff all the time. It's exhausting. So thank you so much. I really could hear the families' voices coming through your presentation. Hope it was helpful for others. Please do as Sarah suggested, but also if you've got any specific questions, I'm sure she'll answer them if she can. So shall we move on? I feel like I need to take a psychological sigh and just breathe out before we move on, because I know Sarah and Leslie are going to talk through quite a lot of slides and words about services. So, and some of this will be, things people really want to think about. So we need to disengage and bring our neocortex to the table now to hear you speak. Sarah and Leslie, do you want to take the floor?
Are you doing the presentation, or do we share our presentation? You're doing it.
I think Debbie's doing it.
Debbie's
Are you doing it, Debbie? I
thought I'd better check. That might be a helpful place to start.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So as we were introduced earlier, my name's Sarah Screech. I'm the operational manager in North Devon MERS pathway, which was previously known to people as CAMS, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. And my colleague Leslie is also here to talk about the complex emotional needs pathway after I just share with you some of the our processes for transitioning. But I think it's helpful to kind of explain about MERS. So we're one of 11 pathways now in Children and Family Health Devon. And as you can see, we have a list of all of our pathways. So historically, we would have been one team with the eating disorders, what we were called as CAMS. We also provided the urgent care, and we also had like an earlier intervention part of our team. So we've now got individual pathways for all of those services, as well as children in nursing, early childhood development, children in care, and our youth justice colleagues. And Y-Smart, they kind of sit in the what we call the ACEs pathway, which is addressing adverse childhood experiences, to neurodiversity, speech and language, physical, sensory, and special learner disability. So we sit under the umbrella of Children and Family Health Devon, and as it kind of says on the slide, is that transition planning is really important across all pathways, and each pathway will kind of have a slightly different process to support the young people that they're working with, to transfer to adult services if they require that transition. And that kind of transition package will look different for all young people, depending on their needs and depending on what services are available within adult services. You know, and it is for us to be really mindful to think about the safe and effective kind of process that we support young people through into adult services with the right support, sharing appropriate assessment information, and if they are engaged in treatment, that we enable them to finish the treatment to then be able to move them on to services. But what you'll also kind of see going through the sites is sometimes we don't get to that point where we're able to provide that therapeutic intervention. And so therefore it might be that the assessment is offered, we have a care plan, we have an idea what the young person might need, and then we would look to be transitioning them to adult services to enable them to get that therapeutic intervention and that treatment that they need. So that's why it varies for young people, depending on what their needs are and what is available within adult services. Next slide, please, Debbie. So as it kind of says on here, for young people, when they are 17 years and 6 months old, that's when we start to think about transitions. But for young people that maybe aren't known to us, but are being referred to us, if they were referred at 17 and a half and it was an appropriate referral, and the young person met the threshold for MERS, which is moderate to severe mental health, then assessments are arranged as a priority assessment to then be able to think, what are the needs of the young person, and are they consenting to being transferred to adult services? And then we might begin those discussions, being quite open and honest about waiting list times and thinking about what the young person needs, and then helping navigate them to the right services going forward. And Leslie will talk a bit more about that as well, because for some services within adult mental health, they may accept young people before they're 18. So they might remain open to our service, but may start to receive care earlier than 18, depending on what it is that they need and what is available within the services before they're 18. So they might be open to children's services and adult services until they reach 18. Again, for young people, which we'll explain in a minute, that are already open to us, so maybe they've had initial assessment and they're waiting for therapy, but because of our waiting lists and our waiting times, we may have to acknowledge with the young person in the family that we're not going to be able to offer that identified therapeutic intervention before they reach the age of 18, and therefore we might have to have those conversations around can they access that identified need through adult services? If not, why not? What are the barriers to that? And might they benefit from something else? Or what might we need to do about that? So if we identified therapeutic intervention that isn't available or accessible in adult services, we might need to consider, are we able to provide it before they are discharged from our service? So it's very much on an individual basis, depending on needs, demands, and capacity and availability. For young people with complex and severe mental health difficulties, clinicians and psychiatrists, as we've said, will kind of undertake transition work and support young people as we would into adult services prior to the age of 18. And, you know, there are challenges. We are aware of the challenges. There are gaps between adult young people services and adult mental health services. And an example is children in care that maybe suffered or suffering from some developmental trauma might not necessarily fit a particular pathway or service within adult services. And therefore we might need to think in a professional network about how we might either be able to access something for that unmet need, or what might we do differently that might have a similar effect or offer similar support. And for young people that are referred, as we said, at 17 and 6 months old, We're aware that, you know, from the beginning, it's about being transparent. So we might be able to offer an initial assessment, maybe some signposting to other services, or we might have to begin that conversation of identifying a need, but being quite open that we're not going to be able to offer that in the time frame due to their age, and that we might then need to refer them on to begin that therapeutic intervention from another service within adult services. So it can be disjointed, and we're not able to provide that complete cycle of care for that young person before referring them on. Next slide, please. So as we've talked about, so MERS, so mood, emotions and relationships pathway. As I mentioned earlier, we are a specialist mental health service that provide initial assessments and therapeutic interventions for young people with moderate to severe mental health difficulties, mood disorders that are impacting on young people, causing high levels of distress and affecting many areas of their day-to-day life. Mental health presentations may include depression, anxiety, PTSD, psychosis, emerging personality disorders, body dysmorphia, and the people you may meet within our service are a variety of mental health practitioners and specialist therapists, speech and language, non-medical prescribers. We have child psychotherapy, clinical psychologist, child and adolescent psychiatry. We have nurses, family therapists, so a real variety of clinicians and clinical skills, knowledge and experience within our team that can support young people, children and young people with mental health difficulties. Next slide, please. So within our service, we provide specialist mental health assessments where we're able to give young people and families some self-help information, as well as maybe suggesting other services that might support the work that we offer, or it might feel at that time that actually there are other services within the community that may be more appropriate, or it might be that they might have their needs met within another children and family health pathway. So we will also look to transfer to other pathways as opposed to closing and re-referring to other pathways, which may have happened in the past. So continual work is going on to look at those processes and improve the experience for young people as much as we can. For those young people that are accepted into our service following a specialist mental health assessment, may be offered either one-to-one therapy. We do groups for young people, as well as parental groups. We work quite closely with other services within the community, and we're also committed to transitioning young people to adult services, as well as other community services and CFHD pathways. Next slide, please. So when we're working with young people that are reaching the age of 17 and 6 months, or that have been waiting for a therapeutic intervention, and we're aware that we're not going to be able to meet the needs of that young person for a therapeutic intervention, we need to meet with them and we need to complete an up-to-date assessment, thinking about what are their needs and what do they want, as well as thinking about the risk to self and others. And then we're liaising with the adult community mental health services, where with the consent of the young person and the family, we would share that information to then be able to attend their locality MDT meetings that they have, which sometimes might be where Leslie may be, as well as other services. So we have TalkWorks, as well as adult mental health services that attend to think about what are the needs of that young person moving into adult services. Sometimes social care will also be invited to those meetings to really think about how do we support these young people in that transition. If it's felt that it doesn't meet the threshold or criteria for those services, it's then to think, okay, so what might be a way forward, which again, Leslie will talk a bit about. Sometimes the pathway that Leslie works in might be that pathway where they do that kind of transition work, to really think about what is it they're needing, and therefore what might happen next. So that might become a bit clearer shortly from Leslie. It isn't, we know that there are challenges within this pathway, but we really do try our best to support young people in this transition from children's services to adult services, as best as we can. And this is the process that we follow. Once we attend those meetings and there has been an agreed outcome, we do then communicate that to the families verbally and follow it up with written information to also try and share that plan going forward with the GP, with the young person and the family, and any other relevant services that are involved with supporting that young person in transitioning to adult services. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to pass you over to Leslie, who's going to talk a bit about the work that we've been doing over the last 18 months with this pathway that's become in place and in development.
So I'm here to think specifically around, do you need to do the neuro pathway bit?
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. I think that slide was in the wrong order. That's my fault. So I suppose the other bit that would be helpful for people to know is for young people that have been referred and accepted into the neuro pathway, where they're 17 and 6 months, and they've been accepted, they will try and honour their assessment if they've been accepted prior to turning 17 and 6 months. So if they were awaiting, they will try and do that for young people. If they're being referred at 17 and 6 months for an autism assessment, those referrals will be redirected to the adult service, which is DANA. So for young people 17 and 6 months with comorbid mental health that are open to our pathway, we will also try and complete the therapeutic intervention as well as that neuro assessment, as in ADHD. For autism assessments, if they're on 2 pathways, we will work together to complete the mental health, the comorbid element of it, as well as try and complete the other assessments. So that is also something we do. Again, the challenges are that we know that there are long waits in services, and the pathways in adult services do not always offer the same services that are available in children's services. So we're aware that there are differences, and we try and, as best as we can, kind of share that with young people and families, and help them understand that there are differences to help manage those expectations. So, the information you were hearing earlier, it can be quite overwhelming and frustrating. There's lots of language. There are lots of kind of challenges that are uncomfortable to hear and accept. But there are also some really good examples of some really positive transitions that we have experienced that, we can't share all of them today. But I think there is a bit of a balance between examples that have gone well and some examples of when things have been quite difficult. And I hope that we do our best to get young people to a place where it's reasonable for them, if not, ideal. Thank you. Over to Leslie this time.
So yeah, I'm here representing the relatively new pathway of the complex emotional needs transition pathway. I work within the adult mental health teams, Devon Partnership Trust, within the specialist directorate. So our service was introduced, as Sarah said, 18 months ago, because there was a notable gap in that move across from young person services to adult services for the specific group of people we've kind of tried to design our service to support. These are young people who are age 17 and a half onwards. We use that similar age, as Sarah was talking about, to give us enough time to really get to know the young person and their support network, rather than try and rush that understanding through, because that just adds another pressure to the process, which can be quite difficult. We work with people who present with complex emotional needs, or kind of emerging personality disorder traits, I guess in language people might have heard more often, and comorbid needs. So we can work with young people who present with neurodiversity as well as complex emotional needs and attachment difficulties. So we try and support as best we can, but also acknowledge within our criteria that we wouldn't be the primary service for maybe someone whose primary needs could be better met in relation to a neurodiversity lens, or a different lens, dependent on the formulation. Jo, did you need to come in?
Hi, sorry, I've got to do that time thing. I just need to give you a heads up that we're over 10 to 2 and young Devon still need to talk. So I don't want to rush you because I know people want to hear what you say, but can you also have an awareness that you're eating into young Devon's time?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I will give you a whistle stop tour, but try
Thank
and
you.
get the key points. So the young people we work with will already be working with MERS in some way, so they could already be allocated a clinician. They might be on the wait list and go through an initial assessment, and we're kind of the signposting into giving someone a bit more time to have their voice heard and understood. Really, we work mostly with people who present with a moderate kind of risk to themselves, to others, moderate severity of symptoms. If you want to skip on, sorry, this will be brief, but I'll do my best. So why did we develop the pathway? So we acknowledge that actually the transitions process, especially for this group of young people, is particularly difficult, because when there may have been some difficult attachment relationship, services can maybe play into some of that, because quite often there could be quick discharges, there could be unclear information about the expectations and what comes next. So we kind of aim to support people through that process and their families, and try and stop people falling between gaps in services at that cliff edge of care between the two. Some of those reasonings are that actually it's really difficult to engage with new services who maybe have a slightly different approach, maybe have different kind of expectations. So it's trying to help people negotiate that, really. We offer psychologically informed intervention and formulation. So as a team, at the moment, we are psychology based. So we come in from that angle of understanding, during part of the assessment, what's going on, maybe some of where things could have developed, before then looking at appropriate interventions moving forward. We offer a longer period of support, so we can support people for up to a year, as the first few months of that is that extended assessment or formulation. And if it feels appropriate and we can offer a service which meets a young person's needs, we will then offer the intervention ourselves. If not, we will signpost on. And it gives a young person and their family a consistent professional moving across that process, to help kind of build some rapport and hopefully a bit more trust in that process through services. Especially with difficulties with attachment, it's good to know you've got someone who already knows you and you don't have to repeat your story. go on to the next slide. I'm just trying to think what we've got. So just a few case examples here. I won't go into them in detail, but this is the kind of work that we would do. So the first example is someone that we've picked up who has been with young person services for quite a long time, so they have quite a good understanding of their presentation and engage really well in that. Started to do some work with one of our team, but actually there was quite a lot going on for them, and our kind of different lens in terms of that formulation process meant that we could do a quite robust referral to the core adult services with a clear understanding of pathways where they could then go and what would be appropriate, which helped them understand what was going to be offered. And then some cases, extended assessment formulations is enough for an intervention, just to give people a better understanding of what they're experiencing, how it can be understood, and share that then with family members to help with maybe anxieties about changes to independence going into adulthood. And other people will support for the full year, complete that formulation, offer an intervention, which can be really helpful then for people to feel like services aren't trying to fix their difficulties, but instead giving them an understanding of maybe how their story has brought them to this point, and empower them to feel like they can have options of how to cope and there is hope for their future being different. And then that's my very brief run through. There's a couple of resources on the last slide just around the community framework that's in place at the moment. That can just be helpful to have an idea about adult services.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have to rush you, but I feel like we really need to give Kirsty all the minutes left now, so I'm not going to say anything else other than, would you two be able to have a look at the questions in the Q&A, because I think you're better placed to answer them, and you may get some other questions, especially if people feel you've missed something. Kirsty, please go on. Do what you can to share young people's voice in the time that is left. And I'm sorry it got squeezed. That wasn't our intention.
Thank you. That's no problem. I will whistle through as quickly as possible whilst trying to have their voice heard. I'm just trying to share. Let me know when it comes live. Yep, okay, fabulous. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kirsty, and I'm the therapeutic lead for Young Devon. I've been supporting young people in our service for around 10 years, and I'm also a parent of a 10-year-old and with additional needs, and a 19-year-old who is currently navigating transition. I'm extremely passionate about supporting young people and their families to be seen and heard. And my intention today is to share with you some of the top points young people have shared with us, about what helps during challenging times. Okay, so I've learned that it's okay to not have everything figured out. The young people tell us that they feel a lot of pressure to know who they are and what they want to do, and to have all the answers. Everyone's asking them what you're going to do, where you're going to go, what's happening next. They told us it was a real relief to discover that nobody had it all figured out. It's okay to take their time to be curious, try new things and learn as they go. And that was really, really important to them. They often had this idea that as adults, we got it all figured out. And then finding out that we're also all just learning was really useful to them. So that was a really important point. So talking helps even when it's awkward and hard. There were times I thought it would be easier to sort things out myself, but actually it was easier when I eventually talked it out. Saying it out loud helped me make sense of it. So even when it's really uncomfortable and sometimes really quite awkward, having safe spaces that give the opportunity for young people to process what's going on and feel less alone can be really helpful. But it is important for us to remember that can take a lot of time, curiosity, patience, and often some humor, like having fun first before we get down to the nitty-gritty. So that was really important for our young people. Learning to notice how I feel without judging or trying to fix it. I used to push stuff down or pretend I was fine. Just admitting to myself I'm feeling anxious today made a big difference, and it stops it building up. How many of us do that? Pretend I'm fine, put on like a brave face. It's really, really useful for young people to understand that feelings come and go. I like to use the wave analogy or the cloud analogy about things that pass, will come and go. We don't have to jump into the waves. And to know that we all experience that. Helping young people to communicate their feelings and have them accepted as valid. Whatever we might think about their feelings and experience, like them knowing that it's valid how they're experiencing the world and feeling about their situation, then gives them the opportunity to find out what other thoughts come along with those feelings. Opens up a space for exploration, for figuring out a bit more when they feel like actually I'm being heard and I'm being taken seriously. Boundaries are a game changer. Saying no is hard, especially if I'll miss something or I'm worried about some consequences. That sometimes there are too many demands. I know Sarah Lou talked a lot about demands. Being able to say no is really important to our young people, and it's really hard for them to say no to their peers because they're really important, and then all the other demands where they feel like they're going to let someone down. Young people told us that learning where they can say no has really helped them feel more in control and less overwhelmed. They've often grown up with very little control over decisions, and so it's really helpful for us to be able to remind them where they have choice or agency over things as they go into transition. So not just assuming that they know where they can say no, and letting them say no to us, and that being okay, even if that wasn't our expectation. I remember a few times my son's been like, oh no, I'm going to go and do something else, and I'm like, sorry, what? But actually, like, that's part of him having agency. So that was a really important thing. I'm just checking I'm not talking too fast. I'm really worried about time. So are we all good? Okay.
But can I just check with Debbie? Are you happy to just keep going, Debbie?
Yeah. I think if people are happy to stay on a bit, if people can't, they can log off. It is going to be recorded and we can keep it on. We'll just continue to go for those that are able to stay.
Thank you. I'd like to hear the rest of your. So yes, take a breath, Kirsty. I want to hear what you've got to say. Thank you.
I remind myself that social media isn't the whole truth. It's easy to scroll and feel like everyone else is doing better. I try to remember that it's edited snapshots and not the full story. The social media can be really overwhelming for all of us. It can be helpful to remember we often see that highlight reel rather than the dull or more gritty parts in between. And it's useful to remind ourselves we all have different values and different goals at different times. You know, whilst my focus might be career at some point, another person's might be travel, we're all on different journeys, and comparison is the thief of joy. That's the other thing to remember. Okay. Learning to be kinder to myself. I used to beat myself up for every mistake, and now I try to speak to myself like I would a mate. Sometimes I even have jokes about the irony of it all. So our internal voices are created by the messages that we receive from others. So how we talk to others and how we hear other people talk about themselves, they're all things that we learn and internalize. And we can support young people to develop their self-compassion by modeling it first. Like, what are we showing to young people about the expectations we place on them, but also on ourselves? A young person told us that when they had made mistakes, what helped the most was somebody staying calm, kind, and chill, not making them feel bad. I think we could all do a dose of that sometimes. So asking for help is hard when I don't know what I need. Sometimes in the therapeutic setting, we'll often say, what do you need? Like, our young people sometimes have no idea what they need. Like, they're on this journey and they're navigating it for the first time. Sometimes I need help to breathe first. Talking to people can be hard because I don't know where to start or where to go with the conversation. It's such a relief when it's not all about the problem. So when a young person struggling, patience, calm, kindness is so much more use to them than advice. It models acceptance over judgment. And then from that place, we can support them to take a moment, take a breath, and then find the courage and resilience to try again. We're absolutely unable to learn or develop in a healthy way when we feel shame. Shame shuts down our prefrontal cortex, and we're not able to carry on or to move forward. So no shame approaches, acceptance, lack of judgment is real key. Just calm, kind. Let's have a laugh about this and find some resilience and where we're going to go from here to move on. Doing small things consistently has been more important than big dramatic changes. So I didn't realize how important the little things were until they were all I can manage. So sometimes when we're in overwhelm, it's really hard to find an anchor. And if we have a good routine of the small little things, this can keep things stable even when everything else seems to kind of fly out the window. Routine, food, sleep, movement, they're not just basic needs, and they really do act as that anchor when things feel too much. So these things are easy to ignore when something feels big, or like it's dominating our whole existence. Keeping the smaller routine in place helps us stay well whilst we face the bigger challenges. I was taught that resilience isn't about being tough all the time. It's about coming back after the tough times and knowing I don't have to do it alone. So resilience definitely isn't about being strong all the time or joyfully embracing life's challenges, which can feel like such a cliche, and in the moment it's really hard to do. Like sometimes challenges are just rough and it all feels a bit rubbish. Resilience is about bouncing back with support, learning from the hard stuff, taking time to recover and rebuild, and most importantly, knowing that you're not in it alone. And that was really important for young people. And it's a relief to know we're all still working on it. When successful older people let me know that they also feel messy sometimes, it makes me feel more normal. I love this one. Shared humanity is a wonderful gift for us all, reminding each other that we haven't got it figured out, that we're sharing the glimmers of what helps us get through the tough times. And there's that balance of the good, the bad, the ugly. Sometimes just being open to spending time together, laughing and connecting can be meaningful relief. Sometimes not even looking at the problem, just taking time to just be with each other. Okay, so a bit of a condense what I've needed most from other people. What helped most wasn't being, that's a typo on my behalf, wasn't being given, that should say, advice or pressure. It was understanding. I've needed people to be patient with my pace, to not rush me or expect me to be better straight away. I've needed space to make mistakes without being judged or shamed for them. What's helped is when people stayed kind even when I was struggling or didn't know what to say I needed. It made all the difference when someone just said I'm here without trying to fix me. So the way you show up matters more than having the perfect words. Listening, staying calm and being real is totally enough, because that's all we can do for them. That's all we can do for each other. That's all we can do for ourselves. So give me time, don't rush for things to get better. Let me mess up without judgment. Be kind even when I don't know what I feel. Listen, don't just try to fix everything. And let me be me, flaws and all. So how can we help? Okay, so Young Devon's recently announced a new partnership with NHS Devon and leading youth organisations. We deliver free early access mental health support for young people across Devon, including Plymouth and Torbay. We're working in partnership with COOF, Space, Encompass and Plymouth Youth Services. The model is built on the Thrive framework and is primarily open to 11 to 17-year-olds, but it can also help up to the age of 25, especially for SEND needs. We aim to support 5,000 people a year, providing a youth work offer, community-based therapeutic interventions, digitally based advice guidance, and mental health support via COOF. So the initiative aims to improve emotional well-being, strengthen resilience, and ease the demand on some of the local services. And we'll be delivering support and helping to make mental health services more accessible for young people across Devon. On Thursday the 25th, there's going to be a big launch for our new service. So look around in your areas. Hopefully some of you have heard about where that's going on. And on our website, there'll be lots of information about how to access our service. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm well over time, but hopefully.
You're not well over time. You did perfectly. You did 14 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
That was
Sharon.
really a really brilliant summary of what young Devon's heard from young people. Yeah, there's nothing I can say to add to that. It was a really insightful, and I'm sure I could see everybody on the screen was listening to what you were saying, and I'm sure we'll take it on board in our work. Thank you so much, all of you. I'm sorry we've run over, but hopefully anyone watching the recording will be pleased that we carried on recording. Anybody who had to run off, I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Sarah Lou, for your presentation at the beginning. I'm going to go back to my mini moments once the cameras stop recording. Thank you, Sarah and Leslie, for your talk. Sorry we didn't give you enough time, obviously. And yeah, I don't know, I haven't had a chance to check whether you've been able to answer those questions, but I knew they'd come, those questions. And if we haven't answered them in full, we'll make sure we do answer them and that the answers will go on the website. There was just one more thing that I'm going to put in the questions and answers. I'm just really conscious that this is really emotional stuff and that there might be people here who are not in a good state currently. So I'm going to post the crisis contact details in the questions and answers so that if anybody feels they need support today, they know where they can get it from. Briefly, if you are or anyone you know is in mental health crisis, you can now call 111 and they will direct you. But in the questions and answers, I've put all the other links and text numbers, both local and national, for either yourself or as a parent carer or as a young person. So please do reach out and get support if you need it today. If you don't need it today, contact the people that have spoken in the room. The services are all on this list. And I wish you all well. It's a tricky journey. Many of us have been on it. And thank you to all the people with the lived experience and work experience that have come and shared their thoughts with us. And I'm sorry that it's got to end because I'm sure we could talk all afternoon about this stuff. On the last slide that Debbie, if you just show the last slide, you won't be able to see these links, but when we upload the slides to the website, the links will all be on the last slide. So, but you're all capable of Googling as much as anybody is. So hopefully you've captured the names of some key players working in Devon. And if not, email that original transitions email, which will be where you managed to book this webinar. Thank you, Debbie, for organising all these events. They've been great, and I know the people who've attended them have found them useful, and I'm sorry this is the last one.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.